I am Lindsay, and I'm the research director for the Education Redesign Lab, and here with a number of my colleagues for a joint session that includes a webinar on connecting children to comprehensive supports and opportunities as part of success planning, and the launch of a learning community on success planning in the second half of the session. So in terms of structure, we'll have the first 45 minutes or so for this webinar on comprehensive supports, and then we'll transition for those of you who are planning to stay for the learning community launch, and those of you who aren't can drop off at that point. I will just say though that we hope many of you will continue on. We have many of you, most of you in fact, registered for that second half. There's no commitment implied in coming to the second half, so if you're just curious to find out more about what that might involve and to have more of a chance for discussion, then please feel free to join us for that second half. A couple of nuts and bolts before we get started. Just noting that you're muted to limit background noise. Please keep your sound off. If you need tech support, please send a chat to Jaspel. Please submit any questions you have in the chat box. We will have some time for discussion at the end of the webinar, and then we'll have substantial time for discussion later in the second half. We're recording today's session, and live captioning is available by using the CC button. Our learning objectives for the webinar are to understand what a comprehensive system of supports can look like as part of success planning, and how communities are building relationships with networks of providers in order to enable this to happen. We will be just briefly giving an overview of the previous webinars we've held on the topic. We have a keynote speaker, Dr. Nakia Towns from the Hamilton County Schools. And then we have a panel that will share their experiences within their local context, growing a network of comprehensive supports. And then finally, some time for Q&A at the end of this. So just to give a little bit of context and background on what comprehensive supports looks like and what we mean by that. We envision success planning as not one specific program, but as a set of core components that includes a navigator, which is an adult who connects with each kid and in many cases with a kid and family, and gets to know that person, that child well and the family well, and understand their needs, their interests, and develops then a plan for action to support those needs and interests. It obviously needs to connect in with a system of supports and opportunities so that there's an operational component. It's not just informational, but actually has a way to provide the supports and services, and a data platform for connecting the services with the kids, for collecting information about them, and for maintaining information from a variety of sources over time. And that can look very different. For us, the key is that each of these can look different in different local contexts. And so ideally, you find a local point of entry that makes sense based on what you already have and what the interests are in your community, but you build towards the whole. And this concept is really built on what we know both about the importance of relationships for kids' development and the value of having comprehensive supports and opportunities for kids, as schools can't do this work alone. And so we need a broader, but also personalized set of supports and opportunities. And then finally, we see this ideally as coordinated by a cross-sector body, such as a children's cabinet within each local community. We're not going to take a lot more time than this to talk about what we mean by success planning, because this is actually the third in a series of webinars we've held on the topic. The first two gave an overview of what success planning is and our vision for that. And the second one dove into the topic of navigators. So we encourage you to look at the webinars that we've previously had if you didn't join us for those. But today we're really focusing on just the comprehensive supports piece of it. I'm also noting that we have a set of 10 guiding principles that frame our vision for success planning. When we talk about comprehensive supports, we mean both those academic supports that kids need within schools. So, if a student with learning disabilities needs additional tutoring, if somebody has gotten behind on math, especially during COVID, then they might need extra academic supports. Certainly many children right now need social and emotional and mental health supports. And sometimes those are offered through schools and sometimes they're outside of schools. In addition to that, every kid has interests and skills and talents, and we need better ways than we currently have to connect each kid with opportunities to develop those interests and to thrive. Some families need help just with basic food supports. Others need health supports. There's a whole range of potential supports and opportunities that we're thinking of when we talk about comprehensive supports. And you'll hear more about how different communities have envisioned this in a few minutes. We're also noting that there are a number of different options for entering into success planning within your community. There are quite a few organizations that have been working on similar models, in some cases for decades, in some cases for years. City Connects, for example, Communities in Schools, BAR, the Coalition for Community Schools, all have visions for comprehensive supports, and in some cases, personalized relationships with adult navigators. And so one option for a community that's interested in starting out is to jumpstart that effort by partnering with an existing organization. Others, for a variety of reasons, whether they want more flexibility, or there are specific ways they're thinking of developing it, might choose to design their own system. And so we're neutral on that. We think that there's a lot to be gained by working with a partner organization, and we think that there are some benefits to doing it on your own. It's just we're thinking about the pros and cons to the different options. And so just having given that very brief overview, I would like to turn it over to the head of the Education Redesign Lab and the founder, Paul Revel, who will introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and you and your colleagues for setting up this wonderful webinar today. Thank all of you in the field. It's so great to see so many people out there on the front lines doing this work day to day. We thank you for your service. We thank you for your interest in this concept about which we're going to be talking at great length today. It's a special privilege for me to have the opportunity to introduce Dr. Nakia Towns, who is the interim superintendent at the Hamilton County Schools in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is a member of the By All Means consortium. She was previously the district's deputy superintendent. There are lots of things to say about Dr. Towns. I'm going to touch on just a few highlights. Prior to joining Hamilton County, Towns was assistant commissioner in the Division of Data and Research at the Tennessee Department of Education. She began her education career in the Knox County Schools in Knoxville, Tennessee, where she held a variety of leadership roles. During her tenure, the district became the only large urban school system to earn the highest designation on the state's report card. Before her work in education, Dr. Towns was a finance executive whose clients included numerous Fortune 500 companies. She also co-founded a nonprofit after-school tutoring and intervention program in rural Georgia. She earned her doctorate degree in educational leadership and policy from Vanderbilt University and has an MBA and an engineering degree from Duke University. We're honored and thrilled to have Dr. Nakia Towns with us as our keynote speaker. Dr. Towns, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Lynn. So really where I want to start is to take us back to the difficulty and the challenge that we've had across K-12 as we think about COVID. So as we move to the next slide, I want to really have everybody focus on where we were last January when we were in probably the second or third wave of COVID. And here in Hamilton County Schools, we had taken all of our children to remote learning configuration. And this was very tough to do, in our winter months, and knowing that what we wanted for children during that time, that it was difficult because we didn't have them with us inside of our schools. And our leadership team was reading a book called Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, and we really had to think about, what is our just cause? Why do we do the work that we do? Why do we persist via these challenges? And what are we trying to accomplish for children, families, and our communities? And we developed this just cause, which, if you've read the book, it's bigger than the why statement. It's bigger than a big audacious goal. It's really how can we invite people to partner with us in the work? And our team developed this as our rallying cry, our just cause, that all children thrive and experience a future without limits. And we love the word thrive because it's such a big word and it means so much to different people. And that's what we want to do. We want to invite people to think about thrive in whatever way they want to define it, because in the end, when you think about what we've been through in terms of the pandemic and our community responses, we need everybody to be a part of this just cause. And frankly, you don't have to be an educator in a K-12 system to be a part of helping all children thrive. You can be someone from our custodial staff to the front desk receptionist, to our bus driver, to a business owner in the community, of course, our parents and families. Everyone can be a part of helping all children thrive and experience a future without limits. And so when we elevated our work to that level, I think for many of us, we had to find a way to re-energize and push through the difficulty of COVID and frankly, the risk that many of us felt and knew was real based on the threat of the actual illness from COVID. And it really made us really deepen our thoughts about what does it mean to say all children thrive. And for us, we had to be confronted with the data in terms of thinking about what's really happening in our district. So next slide, Lynn. When we took a hard look at where we are toward this notion of all, what you see here is a breakout of Hamilton County schools. And I suggest that many of us who work in K-12 school districts, if you did this same analysis, you would see something similar play out. And what we've done in the green box is that we separated out all of the children who are not a part of a historically underserved group, or what we would call an accountability subgroup from our federal and state perspective. And we noted that about 30% of our children were not in any of those subgroups in terms of the test assessed areas that we have. And so that 30%, imagine that's primarily white and or Asian children who are middle class, native English speakers who don't have a disability. That's the 30%. And then you look over at the 70%, and it's children who are in one of these groups that we measure from an accountability perspective, or historically underserved communities. And you can see there Black, Hispanic, Native American, economically disadvantaged, English learners, and students with disabilities. And so what immediately becomes apparent is that for our children who are in one of these historically served groups, they are performing at about a third of the level based on average proficiency as those students who aren't in one of those groups. And I want to be clear, like, this is not the problem. This is a symptom of the problem. And this is where we really had to start thinking about, what are we doing in terms of our system structures and processes to make sure that our just cause is real in the way that we approach our work, that all children will thrive and all children will experience a future without limits. And so when you go to the next slide, Lynn, we even noticed this pattern, right? In our school district, we're about 40% economically disadvantaged, which we define as below the poverty rate. If you translate that to free reduced lunch, it's more like 60 to 65% free reduced lunch students. But even when we looked at schools that had very different demographic makeups, and now you can see that the green in one school, 82%, meaning this is a school that's less diverse, it's very affluent. And then on the other side of the graph, you see a school where it's very majority African-American, Black and brown students, and high poverty school, that the graphic persists that even in schools that look very demographically different, we still manage to better serve children who are not coming from one of those historically underserved groups or accountability subgroups. And so that said to us that this is our inside of school issue as well, right? That it's an inside of school issue that we have to address. And it's not just about what's happening outside of school when you have a wide range of schools. And so this is why student success planning has been so important to us on a 3-year journey that we've been a part of the consortium. So next slide, Lynn. That we really have put student success planning in our context to say that we are going to have every child, that our goal is that all 45,000 of our children will have a whole child look at what their strengths, needs, and interests are, so that we can literally meet every child, every family where they are, so that we can break that chart, right? Like, we don't want to continue to see those disparate outcomes, because we are frankly meeting the needs of some students much better than we're meeting the needs of others. And so we look at student success planning as the assess, connection, and management component. And so what we're making sure that we're doing is that we're going to look at every individual student, ask students about what they're feeling and their own assessment of their non-academic needs. We're going to ask families to participate in that needs assessment. And of course, our teachers who have relationships with those students to identify those strengths, needs, and interests. And once we finish that assessment, we're going to think about who are the other partners we can connect families and children to address those needs that we've identified. Once we've come up with that plan to highlight and prioritize the goals that we have for each individual student, to remove those non-academic barriers to success. And then we're going to manage. This is going to be something that we are looking at over time across the school year. It's not just something we do at one point in time and never look at, and it never influences our practice. We consider this transformational work. We will change the way that we do business for kids. We will change the way that we do business with families. And we will finally break through what has been this historical gap in performance that we have, because it's really about the historical gaps and opportunities that we provide. And that's because we have not identified what the needs are of every child and made sure that we attend to those needs even beyond their academic components. So moving to the next slide. This is where we've been in our district. There's been about 22, we've been moving over time. We now have 22 of our 74 schools are involved in student success planning. And again, next year in 22-23, we will move that to all of our K-8 schools, within 23-24, moving to all of our high school grade bands. And so this is the work that we've been moving on. That's really only been, we've only felt more motivated because of the work and the challenge of the pandemic, that the pandemic showed us that it just exacerbated the equity issues that we knew were always there, which has really motivated our team to say we have to change the way that we do business. Student success planning is that way. So to my final slide, thank you, Lynn. We really will make sure that this just cause that motivated us, that kept our team energized in a very dark winter of COVID last year, that we can actually live that out and think to ourselves and truly accomplish our notion that all children thrive and experience a future without limits. So thank you all so much. I'm hopeful that everybody really takes a hard look at how we can address the whole child and be able to look at both the academic and non-academic needs of our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Towns, for that powerful vision for the difference success planning can make for kids in your community. And also appreciate the grounding in data. So, you know, a great example of understanding what specifically the need is and where the need is as a foundation for thinking about what the solution can be. And so now we want to move to our panel of speakers. We are thrilled to have with us John Cunningham, who is the program manager at Hamilton County Schools and has been working in partnership for Dr. Towns and can give some more details on what it actually looks like on the ground there. Elle Jansen, Senior Associate at the Rennie Center for Education Research and Policy, who has been working on a collaborative initiative with a couple of other organizations to develop what's called the S3 initiative, and she'll tell you more about that. And Andrea Bustamante, the Executive Director of Community School Student Services at Oakland Unified School District. And so we're going to start now with John, and I know you wanted, stop me when I'm at the right place.
That's good, right there. Good.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so thanks for the introduction, and thank you for Dr. Towns for getting this kicked off. I did want to just kind of highlight, as the program manager, it's my job to take that vision and that just cause that they developed at the district level and really operationalize it and find how it works for us at the school level. We did partner early on with City Connects and the EdRedesign Lab to kind of kickstart our efforts and work on just creating a model. As we left that partnership with City Connects, we partnered with Chiefs for Change and the McKinsey Group to design what the Hamilton County model looks like and how we do this in our unique context. We found that this work spreads across roles for us. It's not just a single person in the school conducting student planning. But that means that in the building, you need a champion, someone that's really driving the work and that's making sure that the teams are meeting and that the work is happening at the school level. So in the way that Dr. Towns is our champion at the district level, we work to find champions at that school level. And you can go to that next slide. Just want to give a quick overview of what the pilot has looked like for us. And so in that first year, sorry, back one, we did create about 3,400 student plans, figured out what this looks like for us at elementary and K-8, and figured out that the platform and the way that we were doing it was not really going to work for the collaborative model that we wanted. If you go to that next slide. The next year, we did bring in some high schools to try to figure out what this looks like for students at the high school level, what the focus for high schools looks like and how it's different than K-8. And we started developing our own platform. We all know what happened in 2021, and a lot of the challenges were shared across districts, but we had some unique challenges. We had a tornado that took out a lot of our community and knocked down one of our largest elementary schools. We had some unhoused elementary students on top of pandemic and being remote. And so in the midst of that, we worked on persevering and creating this data platform that would really support the process that we were working to develop. You can go to that next slide. So this is our proof of concept here. As Dr. Towns mentioned, this is when we flipped the switch. And so we flipped the switch from kind of a small grassroots number of schools trying to figure this out and get it right for the rest of the district to now it's full scale. We have a data platform. We have now 22 schools, and soon, as Dr. Towns mentioned, over 60 schools that will be in the pilot program. This year, we'll create around 8,000 student plans, which is about double from last year. Next year, we'll create around 24,000 student plans. So we're scaling up very quickly, and we've flipped that switch, and you can go to that next slide, to say that this is just now the way we do business. Sorry, back one. This is just now, this is just now the way we do business in Hamilton County schools. It's not an initiative or a program or a platform. It's just the way we do business. And so some of the things we've learned in that pilot process has been that this is a whole team effort for us in Hamilton County. It can't be just one coordinator or one counselor who's managing it. It's going to be the whole school and every student support function, including the teacher, the family, and our community partners. And that this is a comprehensive approach. It's in all of our school systems and teams. It doesn't live independently from them. And you can go to that next section now. And the piece that we're really working on this year is how do our partners help lighten that load? So for our students who are under-resourced, who are in those subgroups, how do we bring more resources to those students and to those families? And how do we leverage our partners, most of whom we're already working with and already work deeply with our families, to get on the same page with us, share our goals, and come alongside us so that we're working in the same direction, on the same goals, and on the same action steps for students. So the United Way and Chattanooga 2.0, who is our backbone organization for the Children's Cabinet, have done a comprehensive asset mapping, and they've found around 152 partners that we work with as a school district and 215 programs. And so if we go to the next slide. Our goal is to have all of those partners that we work with deeply have access to our digital platform and training from us around how we organize this work. And obviously that's not going to be managed just by the school district. That's really the work that our Children's Cabinet and our Out of School Time Alliance, I know that I saw a few of you guys on the call, I see On Point and a few other people, Rachel Gammon, I think from Northside Neighborhood House. They're doing the work to figure out how partners hold each other accountable towards our goals, partner with us more deeply, and really learn the process and the platform that we're putting in place for student planning. You go to that next slide. And so what's helping us to do is to go past just how many connections have we made for students at each tier, which was our focus in the past before we really had this platform, and start thinking about impact. And so next slide. So as we start thinking about impact, we can go inside now our data platform. We can do either a digital referral, or we could connect a student if we have a partner who's not active on the platform. And we can start to track, after that connection is made, what types of change do we see in that student? And so being able to combine those two types of data, and you can actually go to that next slide. Go one down, and I'm going to come back to the timeline actually. So once we can come to those two types of data coming together, where we can see how long a student has worked with a partner and what type of outcomes we're seeing with that student over time, is really going to give us a better sense of how to partner, how to work with partners to partner with us better, and for partners to be able to give us feedback about what they're seeing in students. And so if we come back, sorry, 2 slides. Yeah. So our timeline is right now we're testing that community platform. We have our core partners who are part of that out of school time alliance with the Children's Cabinet, who are working through the testing and the bugs and telling us what they'd like to see be different in the platform before we really roll it to our larger partners, with the idea being that in the spring, as we come to our full K-8 in March, that we would also have our large scale partners on board for that transition. And with that, I will turn it back over to Lynn for our next panelist.
Thank you so much, John. That it gives so many things to think about. I'm glad I will note, since I've gotten a couple of questions about it, we will be sharing the slides and the video after the session. So for those of you who wanted a little bit more time to dig into some of the information, you will have that opportunity later. John, I just want to say it's amazing to see how much this initiative has developed in the past year or two. And now we will turn it over to Andrea Bustamante to talk about the Oakland Unified Community Schools.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. So I just wanted to share a little bit of context from Oakland. So about 10 years ago, Oakland launched a new strategic plan, and our vision is to become the first full-service community school district. And so we've been working on this for 10 years, knowing that, as you've heard earlier, as a school system, we are not sufficient to be able to provide all the supports and resources that our young people and families need to be successful and ready to learn. So a bit of context about us. We consider all of our schools to be community schools. We have about 50 of those that have a full-time coordinating role. That's about 2/3 of our schools here. We have a broad school-based health center program, a large after-school program in almost all of our schools, robust restorative practices. And I'm going to talk about the cost referrals that you see there. That's our student success planning that I'm going to refer to today. And then around partners, we also have about 215 partners and organizations who include both local community-based organizations, very small, locally grown ones, to county and city partnerships, to publicly funded mental health providers. So a broad range of partners that come in to support our students and families. In the next slide, you'll see a little bit about what we focus on. Restorative practices, really thinking about how do we partner with families to support student learning. That's been an area we've been growing into over time. Developing partnerships really to provide those additional services to students and families, and getting smarter at the partnerships, making sure that the partners that are on our school campuses are the right ones to work with our families and providing the right kinds of services for us. And then really supporting students to be in school ready to learn. Our community school model is all about learning and ensuring that students and families have what they need to be successful. During the pandemic, as you might imagine, we all pivoted to really thinking about their home needs that they might have. So housing, food, technology, all of those areas were things that we were able to pivot to during the pandemic as a result of our coordination of service team. And then finally, really partnering with teachers to identify additional supports for student learning. And that's why I'll speak a little bit to our coordination of service team, specifically at our school sites. So for us, ours is a multidisciplinary school-based team. composed of teachers, administrators, partners, and support staff working together to develop and manage academic and social emotional interventions for students. A student can be referred for any reason, and the majority of them are for academic, although we have a large variety of social and emotional behavioral supports at the table. At the next slide, you'll see who is on our team, as I mentioned. Coordination of service team is at 100% of our schools. It's something that we've worked on scaling over the years as part of our vision to become a full service community school district, even if there's not a full-time coordinator there. And so we've worked to provide coaching and support at those school sites. The members include, as I mentioned, the principal, an academic rep, other school psychologists. And this is where we bring our partners to the table. The teams meet about weekly, and any community partner that is providing regular community services and supports on our school communities come to that table and can receive a referral at the time. I think in the next slide, you'll just see a little bit about how that process works for us. Right now, it is a referral based. It's not 100% universal yet, although we are working to get towards that using some early warning data. So for us, a student might show a need, or a student can actually ask for support as well. They can self-refer. They would receive some initial supports. The adult would refer the student to our coordination of service team. And just hearing earlier, we have also moved to a universal data platform away from independent school site tracking measures, so we can look at data more robustly across our system. Our coordination of service team will triage that student's need and really think about, while maybe the adult referred the student for one area, as they work with the student, they understand that there's actually a different need that might be more critical to helping that child be successful in school. We connect the student to service, and then that provider then becomes the one responsible for, following up, case managing, providing data, and bringing back regularly to our coordination of service team updates about where that student is, and if we can exit that student from services or transition them to other services. And then we'll progress monitor and adjust as we go. So we really thought about what that could look like. I think just a couple of learning points as I move to wrap up. Data sharing and getting all of our partners onto one single platform is definitely an area to consider across our system, particularly as many of our providers are mental health providers, and some of the privacy concerns that they have around HIPAA and FERPA and all of those fun things around how do we share information. But for the most part, it's really just about having all of the people at the table that can support that child so that they are in school ready to learn and be successful. And I'll turn it back to you, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And I'll just note that you've been working for a while on the data platform piece in collaboration with Salesforce. And so for people who are interested, you might reach out later for some additional information on that. And now I will turn it over to Elle Jansen to talk about the S3 program in Massachusetts.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everyone. I am just so excited by all of the remarks folks have given so far. It's really incredibly exciting to see this great work that's happening. And what I'm going to talk about today is really dedicated to supporting schools and districts and doing the work that John and Andrea and Dr. Towns are already engaged in. So as Lynn said, my name is Elle Jansen. I'm a co-facilitator of the Systemic Student Support Academy, which is a collaboration between the Rennie Center and Boston College's Center for Optimized Student Support. We are one of 8 professional development academies that is funded by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The Systemic Student Support Academy, or what we call S3 Academy, is really a program designed to support schools and districts in building effective systems of integrated student support, or said another way, right? Coordinating all of the processes and practices that are happening in relation to student supports into a one comprehensive system, as my colleagues have talked about already today. So to start that, we can hop forward. We start by saying every child is unique. And we pull a lot from the developmental sciences, as well as best practices and research behind integrated student supports to say a couple things, and you can kind of just run through these. That we know that multiple domains of development interact. So we can't discuss academics without talking about social emotional, talking about the students' health and well-being, understanding what's going on with their family life, et cetera. So really taking a whole child approach to student support. We also know that developmental trajectories are not static, but rather ever changing. And so student supports should be that way as well. We also know that strengths and needs co-act to impact development. So instead of only talking about students' needs as they arise, also really talking about their strengths. So in S3, we really promote an asset-based approach to student support. And in order to take a whole child approach, we really have to consider students' culture, history, identities as key to supporting them in this holistic way and promote their holistic development. So we can hop forward. From the developmental sciences, we have 4 really key buckets that we talk about a lot in S3. The first being that student support should be individualized. So each and every student's strengths and needs are reviewed. The second, what we just really talked about, which is that we're taking a whole child approach. We're talking about all developmental domains. We're including culture and identity to really understand a snapshot of a student's development. The third is that it's continuous, that student support plans are created for each and every student every year to follow kind of their ever-growing needs, strengths, et cetera. And the fourth, which is what S3 really focuses on, is that it's systematic. So there's a uniform approach and follow-up to student support so that student supports can be individualized, can be a whole child's approach, can be continuous. And so that's what we really focus on in S3 and supporting schools and districts in doing. And I'm going to talk a bit about all 4 of these in a second. So we already really talked about the whole child approach. So I'm going to start with the individualized. We can hop forward. So in the S3 Academy, we promote that each and every student receives an individualized student support plan, which is kind of our way of saying success plan, every year. And that those support plans are really actionable, meaning that from a holistic review of each student, they're able to be identified and aligned with the appropriate supports at the appropriate time to really promote their holistic development. And so to make those plans actionable, right, we're talking about strengths and needs, we're talking about multiple developmental domains, we're really identifying supports that promote holistic development, which I'll talk about more. And of course, that there is action steps for implementation involved in this. And these plans come out of a holistic student review process, which is generally a meeting between teachers and a guidance counselor or in grade level team meetings. Also, as well, in like various ways of gathering observational data on students in domains we might not necessarily have kind of comprehensive data on all the time. And then after students are reviewed for their strengths and needs, we really want to move to that kind of comprehensive support piece, which is also the continuous piece. And so we're reviewing students in this holistic way, right? When we see a student in a holistic way, we're talking about kind of a web of development, which then leads to this constellation of supports or web of supports that's really targeting to support that student in their holistic development. So asking questions, what is the student's greatest area of strength or their greatest area of need? And which supports will be the most beneficial to support that holistic development? So instead of kind of throwing 10 different supports at a student, what are those kind of high-level key supports that are really going to help that student? And the last thing I'll say on that piece is that it's continuous. So a support that a student has right now might not be the same support they need in 6 months to a year, et cetera. So we're constantly re-reviewing students, reassessing where their development is at and how we can appropriately support them at the appropriate time. And then the last big bucket of S3 that we talk a lot about is that systemic piece or the systematic approach. You can go forward. Yeah. So this is, one back, sorry. This is what we call our chaos slide, which really just shows the rich resources, supports, interventions that live in and around schools directly targeted at supporting students and families. But, oftentimes we see them and they live in this kind of chaotic zone where we're not really sure where to get them or services aren't necessarily readily available, et cetera. And so what we really do in S3 is take kind of that chaos and make it into one coordinated system. So it's not recreating anything or a new program, but taking all of the rich resources, the practices and processes that are in place in schools, and you can hop forward, and really putting them into one system that is reaching each and every student, that is talking about their strengths and needs, and that is really addressing the holistic development of all students. So really what we're doing is supporting schools and districts in systematizing a whole child approach to student support. So thank you so much. I'll pass it back over to Lynn.
Thank you, Elle. Just amazing to see sort of the similarity of definition of what kids need, and then a range of different approaches, with different types of emphases on how to get there. So I personally just find this incredibly encouraging and motivating. I know we don't have a lot more time for this first half, so I just wanted to ask each of the three of you to answer two quick questions about the work that you've been doing. First, what's one thing that you're particularly proud of accomplishing within your context? And another is, what is one challenge that you've been facing in designing and implementing this? And so let's just go in the same order, starting with John.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Well, it's two questions, I guess. I think I'll start with what could have been a challenge, but I think that it ended up not being as much of a challenge. Of course, we've gone through the same things that a lot of other communities have, community crises and the pandemic, but we had a unique situation where within about 3 months, 3 of the 4 core organizations of the Children's Cabinet are seeing changeover at the top. So our superintendent has moved, and Dr. Towns is now in his place. We have a new city mayor, and the executive director of our backbone organization for the Children's Cabinet also stepped down and is currently being replaced. And so I think if we didn't have an anchor or something that was holding the work together, we could have seen some of the momentum we were building and some of those partnerships kind of stall out. So having student success planning in place and really accelerating it and getting it entrenched so deeply has kept that, I think, so far from happening. It gave the new city mayor something to come around and support. And so he's placing community school coordinators in 7 of our schools, and they'll use student success planning as their model of service delivery. And so it gave him a very data-based, comprehensive model already developed to plug in support from the city level that we weren't having before. So definitely could have been a challenge that set us back by years, but by having that anchor in place, I think that we overcame it. And the most proud thing, at the school level, there's success teams, which is the counselor, social worker, and administrator. Sometimes there's additional members like a school nurse that carry the work, and they've seen the platform change, the model change, school go remote, come back in person. And the job that the core of schools that have been with us for 3 years have done and just maintaining that service to students and connecting service to students throughout has just been incredible. So that's really the win, is that those teams have persevered through everything that's been thrown at them.
Thank you, John. Andrea?
Yeah, hi. Similarly, I think our biggest success is that despite several leadership turnovers in the last 10 years, our mission and vision have sustained, which has allowed us to scale our coordination of service team and community school model across 100% of schools having coordination of service teams. We started with just a handful. So I'd say that's a big success. A challenge, I'd say, is, as Lynn mentioned, we are implementing a new platform in partnership with Salesforce, and just scaling to 100% of schools, a new data platform, just takes a lot of brain work and partnership to get everyone on board.
Thank you. Elle?
Yeah, so I think, something we're really proud of in S3 is kind of the small wins we see all the time, which directly relates to my challenge, but seeing kind of teams and schools say, we're no longer just talking about academics in our team meetings, we're talking about all these other developmental domains. Teachers saying, wow, I really understand all of my students in a way that I never did before, which has allowed me to shift the way I'm teaching, shift the way I'm directing supports, in the classroom to the various needs and variety of needs in my classroom. So things like that, I think we're really proud of. The challenge is building a system as like this doesn't happen overnight, and can take iteration upon iteration to really coordinate efforts. And so, we talk a lot in S3 about starting small and scaling up as the way to get to this comprehensive system. When you think of just a system at first, that's overwhelming. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. And so we really, start small, using continuous improvement methods, kind of implement as we go, seeing what works, what doesn't, because that's how it's going to be both scalable, but also sustainable. So that's a challenge though, across the board, but. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great summary note to wrap up this part of the session, because that challenge of scaling and sustainability is something that every initiative will face. And really appreciated, John, your perspective on having the really concrete undertaking as a galvanizing activity that can keep everybody focused and motivated. Sometimes it can feel that those moments of transition can derail activities, but it does seem that the more invested everybody is in a community in the activity itself, and the more it's created a proof point that there's value in this, the more likely it is that everybody will see the value in sustaining that work going forward. Because we are transitioning to the launch of the learning community, I think I'll hold on the discussion right now, because we will have quite a bit of time to have a conversation in smaller groups in just a couple of minutes. So I just want to pause here and thank all of you who participated in the panel. Thank you so much. And to Dr. Towns for sharing your insights into both what motivated this work in the Hamilton County schools and what it looks like and the difference it's making there. That's very powerful for people to see, and we appreciate your taking the time to join us today. We will just note that we'll be sharing both the slides and the link to the recording after the session. So if something went by a little too quickly, we hope that you'll go back and have a chance to take a look again and to listen to that some more. We also do have quite a few resources and tools on our website, which is EdRedesign.org. If you look under the resources section or under the research section, you can actually search by topic, which is success planning, and find quite a few of these materials. And I would also just say that for those who want to hear more about the impact that this is making on teachers and their practice and on students, our first webinar on the topic did feature quite a few voices, and it's really powerful to hear that. And finally, feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions and you're not joining us in the second half. And I do, again, want to encourage everybody to continue on for another 45 minutes. We will be taking just a short 30-second pause for everybody to catch your breath and grab a drink of water. And then we'll be reconvening very shortly for that second piece. Thank you.